Like right now, we're going to look at my top 5 cookbooks from restaurants for everyone, plus one bonus one that I think combines the lessons from all of these into one book that has no recipes in. It's a must-have for any chef or anyone who's interested in cooking. And even if you're not a chef, actually, it's got stuff in there that I think is going to help you with everything that you do in your life. So, which one should we start with? I'll tell you what, we'll start with the one that I got first that made me rip up my life and want to become a chef. I'd gone to the restaurant in Copenhagen before I knew what all this was about. So we'd booked this table because I saw it come up, and yeah, it changed my view on what cooking could be. And then I got the cookbook, and the first few nights that I had it, I was up. I didn't sleep, I was just reading this till like 4 or 5 a.m. and it's the Relay Cookbook from Christian Puglisi. Now, there's so much great stuff in this. And I'd never really seen a cookbook that had an explanation of, or at least an exploration of how they think about food, what food can be, how they come up with it, the people they work with, like creating a restaurant, all the little details like having the knives in the cutlery drawer under the table. And that combined with my experience of eating there and just seeing all these chefs buzzing around and the front of house and how they operated and just the environment that it was in. It was just, this was so many levels above of anything I'd eaten at before or read about before. It just blew me away, and I was absolutely fascinated with everything about this restaurant and read this from cover to cover multiple times. At one restaurant I worked at, we had to make staff food as everywhere, but you had to make separate staff food for the management. So there was like 4 or 5 people that you had to make something completely different for. And I like to challenge myself. And so I decided to cook them the sunflower risotto that is in here, where he uses sunflower seeds, the sunflower puree. And so I made them this at a very classical French restaurant. I made them, the management, this dish. And my palate wasn't developed then. And so, you know, I've spoken in a previous video about using recipes from cookbooks and actually how you need to develop your palate and your skills in order to get the most from them, because there's a lot of stuff that's not written down that you need to know. And so I just made the dish as it was written, and it wasn't quite balanced, and so it was quite cloying. But that's how you learn, right? By making mistakes. Absolutely, absolutely loved it. Oh, actually, yeah. And at the time, I applied to Amateur MasterChef, which was 2016, 2015, 2016. And I did a version of raw beef. And to apply for the program, you have to pre-prepare a dish that you would make on the program to demonstrate your cooking skills. So I trekked across London with raw meat in my bag and then served a raw meat dish to the producers, 2 of which didn't want to eat it, which is probably which is why I didn't get onto that series of MasterChef. But I absolutely love this book, and there's just some solid cooking in here, really lovely, clean flavors. Yeah, a lot of restaurants had this book at the time. There's a lot of good stuff in here. The most recent cookbook I've bought is this one. So this is the Square Cookbook by Phil Howard. Within this are his savory recipes and his pastry recipes. And there's a chef up in Yorkshire in the UK called Tommy Banks who said that he earned a Michelin star basically by using recipes from this cookbook. So the Square at the time was a 2 Michelin-starred restaurant. The cooking in here is just absolutely beautiful, and there's some pairings in here that are very classic, but just executed very cleanly, very deliberately. And there's a lot of like the kind of fundamental techniques in here that you need to develop your skills as a savory or pastry chef are basically all in this book. And I've absolutely loved this. I've learned so much from this when I've been looking at developing the menu for Elder. A lot of the dishes that we produce in here, we'll pick and pull elements from different restaurants and put them together in a way that hasn't been done before. But it's why I say I'm not creative, because all I'm doing is sort of being a little magpie and picking bits that I like from a lot of other chefs. You know, we make some of our own stuff, but it's really largely 80% other people's work. A lot of it comes from this book and a lot of the others in here, but that's something we've already talked about. So that's that one. So we cook on fire a lot at Elder, and this book by Lennox Hastie is absolutely brilliant. It goes into depth about the different woods, different temperatures, how you can get a gauge for feeling the temperature. So Lennox Hastie was at Ekshibari, which is now one of the most talked about and revered restaurants that happens to cook over fire that you'll have heard of. And Lennox Hastie, I think, was Victor's sous chef. And they developed so much great stuff in partnership, and then he's gone off to Australia and started to create his own cuisine, which he's detailed in here. Again, it's kind of relatively simple, but there's so many great elements and information. Like, this is the first part of the book, and it's still just talking about how to light a fire. Now this is about wood varieties, and then a third of the way in, and you only just start to get to his recipes. Like, there's so much technical knowledge in here about how you can start to cook over fire. Yeah, I absolutely love this book. It's helped me so much, and I'd also give a shout to the Ekstedt cookbook, and he's a restaurant in Sweden, absolutely beautiful. And then the Ekshibari one is great. Like, that's just a lovely book to put on your coffee table and read about. I haven't used so many recipes from that, because I think a lot depends on the ingredients that he gets and the fires that he has and how he cooks over fire, which we just can't replicate. But there's also not a lot of recipes in this book, actually. Finding fire. This one, I think, is a lot of chefs' favorite cookbook, and for good reason. It's been so influential, and there's not really much more to say about it. It's the White Heat Cookbook from Marco Pierre White. This, I've found, the longer that I've cooked and the more time that I've spent in the industry, the more you realize just how influential he was and how right he was about certain things. So there's some chapters in this and some kind of paragraphs in this. I'm just going to read out some of these quotes because I think they're just amazing. 9 out of 10, you still see this today, and it always makes me think of this quote. 9 out of 10 English chefs have their name on their chests. Who do they think they are? They're dreamers. They're jokes. Just ask yourself, how many chefs in this country have Michelin stars and how many have names on their jackets? We all wear blue aprons in my kitchen because we're all commies. We're all still learning. Now that last bit, like, if you look at the best chefs, they all have that mentality that you never stop learning. I think what's really lovely about the recipes in this is that some of them are actually incredibly humble. I mean, this was at the time 3 Michelin stars, but as he says about this, which is his salad of red mullet, there's nothing clever about this. We just borrowed an idea from the Mediterranean. A bowl of salad, a pot of ratatouille, a few fried fillets of red mullet, some bread. That's a great lunch. What more could you want? And I think as long as you give food the respect and time as a chef, and as he would say, accept that Mother Nature is the true artist, then you end up with some of this beautiful food that would have a place on any menu today. Now the cooking in this book actually is something I've only really just started to appreciate. So early in my career, when you're sort of learning it, you're like, oh man, all these old ideas, they're in the past. Like, we're cooking this new food with like Nordic influence and all that stuff. But the older I've got and the longer I've been cooking, the more cooking that I've seen and come to appreciate the craft and art of it, I can't help but smile when I look at these dishes, because there's just so much love in them, and there's going to be so much flavor in them. And it's not fussy, really. My favorite book is this one. It's the Big Fat Duck Cookbook. Now this is arguably, I think, the best cookbook ever written. And I work there, I'm slightly biased, but the information and the knowledge in this and the insights and all of the science stuff at the back are so incredible. And it's such an amazingly produced, he took 10 years to write this. The photography, the recipes are exactly as were used in the restaurant. There's no shortcuts, there's no substitutions, there's no apologizing for how complicated and how many steps are required. It's just all in here. It's just so beautiful. That's his caviar and white chocolate dish that we've talked about in the flavor pairing video. And look at these lovely art. Look at this artwork. This is the licorice and salmon. It's beautifully stylized, and the actual dish is there. So that was a gel of licorice that encased the fish with a vanilla mayonnaise and grapefruit. And then towards the back you get the pastry stuff, or some of the incredible dishes. And then when you get to the science, you've got even more. So about ice filtration, laboratory balances that they use. So this, the fat duck was modernist cuisine, basically. They were at the forefront of that, developing new techniques. They've got a rotary evaporator there to concentrate flavors without using heat. They're using a refractometer to measure sugar concentration, which is important if you're making sorbets and ice creams and syrups. Vacuum, so this is how he was making his triple cooked chips. Aerated chocolate. Vacuum ovens. Like all of this stuff is what I used when I was studying chemistry, and they were just doing this to use with ingredients in a restaurant. It's absolutely wild. And then there's some kind of physiological stuff. So the science of food, and they're talking about how we taste and how we smell, the receptors on the tongue. More stuff about sensory perceptions from Andy Taylor, like professors in the UK that they're talking with. There's so, look at this. There's so much great information in this book. It's a special place and a very special book, and I'd recommend anyone pick up a copy of this. Right, and the bonus book. So this takes a lot of the lessons, if you were to work in these restaurants, and condenses them into a book. It's called Work Clean by Dan Charnas. And when I've had a new chef join us, I've always bought them a copy of this book, because within it are the key ideas about how to work and how to carry yourself as a chef, and how the insights from the best chefs can help you organize your life. And basically you use the idea of mise en place to have everything on its place, to have checklists, to work clean, to put something back where it belongs, so it's always, you don't have to think about where it is, you know where it is because it's always in the same place. Like all these simple ideas that make such a big difference are all within this book. Also things about how you communicate with others in a professional setting, cleaning as you go, arranging spaces, so like having everything close so that your movements are efficient. Planning, getting ahead of the day, making sure you know exactly what you need to be doing, when you need to be doing it, what you need to order, the steps, the time that all that takes. Like if you apply all this to your cooking and to life at home, it makes such a big difference.